Maida, let's see your basil. Oh, wow. Lift it up a little higher. Oh, yeah, you've got
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
And I have a whole nother package.
Wow.
Oh, basil.
I didn't wash it though. It looked clean. I don't know if you have to wash.
It's going to be cooked, I guess. So
I guess. I guess you take out a soup pot, maybe.
Oh.
Can anybody hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Can you hear us now?
I can. I've only done this like twice in my life, so I have no idea what to do.
Awesome. I'm going to explain. Okay, there we go. So now everyone should be muted except for me, which is perfect. Yes, that would work, having headphones. So we are going to get started. We will take questions as we go. The easiest way to say that you have a question is to type it in the chat so that we can unmute you. And then there'll be some like free-for-all question and answer time too. So the best way to view this is to go into the upper right-hand corner of your Zoom and click speaker view instead of gallery. The gallery view looks like the Brady Bunch, and speaker view is so you can just see who is speaking, which will either be me or someone who is asking a question. So that's the easiest thing to do. And we'll get started. So if you don't know who I am, I'm McKenna. I know a number of you have met me, a number of you are new. Nice to meet you all. And today's order of operations, we are going to be doing 2 types of focaccia if you have the flour for it, which I will talk about in a second. And we're also going to be doing the Pistou soup. And that is kind of the order of operations. The light in here is so funny today. Hold on. Let me see if I can actually turn off this heat lamp above my head. Ooh, that's so much better. Yay. So, yeah, I think that's it. Cool. So what we're going to do to start is we're going to make 2 types of focaccia if you have enough flour and enough yeast. So we're having a little bit of problems sourcing instant yeast in France. I think David might understand that too, because I do believe you're also in France. And finding yeast is, yeah, not there. Finding yeast is super duper challenging right now. So I actually kind of have been playing with it to make it work. But if you have instant yeast, this will be a cakewalk for you. And hopefully you do. So we went to 7 grocery stores today. 7 grocery stores. And still didn't find any instant yeast. So I have all sorts of oobles and goobles of bowls doing their various things because they needed 2 hours to rise. So just kind of part of the gig. So first things first, we are going to make the focaccia we're going to do today, which is a fast focaccia. And then if you have enough flour and enough yeast, we'll make a second that you'll jam in the fridge so you can make another day. So that's kind of, or so you can make it tomorrow and throw it in the oven. A long, slow focaccia is delightful, but I think that getting on a video call and then hanging out for 12 hours sounds like a lot of fun in theory. but less fun in practice. So could be fun though too. So first things first, you need 2 teaspoons of active yeast. And you then also need a little bit of tepid warm water. So it needs to be about 100 degrees Fahrenheit, so it should be warmer than your skin. But it shouldn't be too warm, otherwise you'll kill the yeast. So you need 2 teaspoons of yeast. This is my active yeast. I bought it at my grocery store. You see that expiration date? June of 2019. So it did not work very well. So that's why we're on an active yeast problem. But when you have active yeast, you're going to take 2 teaspoons of it. I had teaspoons. Oh, those are not teaspoons. Nope, you cleaned all my teaspoons. Sorry about that. Chris did too good of a job of cleaning. We're going to take 2 teaspoons of active yeast. We're going to pretend like this is 2 teaspoons. And we're going to put a little bit of warm water over it. And we're going to set that aside. This is what a little bit of warm water looks like. Oh, sorry. I don't need to see that. Take it away, because otherwise I'll stare at it. I only need to see it when I'm looking at people's techniques. So that's what a little bit of warm water looks like. There's 2 teaspoons of active yeast. If it's active, you will not need honey, you will not need sugar. It'll be fast, and it'll start to get a little bit of froth on it, which is what we're looking for. And we'll set that aside. The next thing we need is 500 grams of all-purpose flour. Now, if you don't have a scale, I am going to give you the live cup measurements. If you have a scale, 500 grams is perfect.
James asked if the flour, if it matters if it's unbleached or unbleached all-purpose.
It doesn't really matter. It'll change the texture a little bit, but it won't change, it'll flavor, but it won't ruin the dough. The key with focaccia is getting a lot of bubbles, right? That like cakey, bright, bubbly thing happening, which happens primarily through the yeast and through the flour not being too densely packed, and then also through kneading. So today, this one we're doing first is going to be a kneaded dough, and then we're also going to do an overnight enrich. So yeah, it doesn't really matter that much. I'm using type 100 flour, which is a kind of specifically for pizza and focaccia, but any sort of like brighter, whiter flour, doesn't have to be white, light flour is important. So I am going to do the scoop and sweep method, since that is the best way to do it if you don't have a scale. And I'm going to be measuring to my 500 grams. So I'm trying to cover those of you who don't have food scales. So I'm just scooping my flour into my measuring cup. I'm going to be making a mess because I don't have a good container for this. And then I'm going to sweep off the bowl of the excess. That's just going to be easy. Sweep off the excess. So there's 1 cup. That brought us to about 130 grams. By the way, it's about 4 cups, just so you know. But I do want to prove that to you and not just make the assumption. 2 cups. And just as a point of reference, we're at 250 and not 260. And that just shows you that measuring is way, measuring by
That's a 1 cup
weight.
measure, yes.
Yes, this is a 1 cup measure. But that just shows you the weight is much better than this method. But we'll get an approximation for those of you who don't have scales. And those of you who do, 500 grams of flour is your sweet spot. So this is cup 3. That brought us up to 374. Cup 4, 502, 4 cups. I'm okay with the extra 2 grams. I'm not going to panic about that. We have done the flour until our next batch. Again, only if you have the flour, we'll do it really fast. Now that you have your flour, you're gonna add a teaspoon and a half of salt. If you have like good kosher salt, great. If you don't, it's fine too. This is a little bit finer than kosher salt. I'm not a little bit less than a teaspoon and a half. You can see the grains on this are super fine. So I'm gonna do a little less because otherwise it'll be real salty. And I'm eyeballing this because I'm a renegade. And then we'll grab a twist and give that a nice little loop just to mix that salt and the flour together. Whisk is the best thing to mix the flour and salt. A spoon just won't incorporate everything as well. I'm going to remove my scale into our next batch. And then, questions up to this point?
Salt amount again?
Teaspoon, teaspoon and a half. Depends how salty you like it and how finely grained your salt is. Some salt has a much more salty per teaspoon based on how much surface area and all that sort of thing. So it's better to err on the side of caution and then worry about the salt, adding salt to the top later. And you can see that my yeast is dead. There's nothing happening. It will still rise. It's just going to take longer. So if you have active yeast, it should already be getting kind of frothy at the top a little bit if you use warm water. So you're going to take a quantity of tepid water. You're going to want to take your yeast and water mixture and put it into a measuring cup. With cups or milliliters, I highly recommend having a little, I'm using milliliters. I'll be able to tell you the translation because I have both on here. And my goal is to get to about 300 milliliters of water. Not quite enough. So 300 milliliters of water, about 1.5 cups. So that's my water. It's warm, just above skin temperature with my yeast mixture and water in it. So I wanted to make sure I have the right quantity of water. Now I'm going to take a thing that Dominique would make fun of me for using. My favorite pudding spatula. It's my favorite. And I'm going to grab the olive oil. Oh, here it is. So I am going to pour a little bit of my water mixture in, about 1/3 to 1/2 of the total mixture. And I'm just going to give it a good stir. Until, you know, there's not a lot of water sitting around. I'm going to add a little bit more.
So you definitely don't want to dump it all in at once.
Definitely don't want to dump it all in at once. Just gets kind of gloopy and it takes longer to incorporate well. So there it's coming together. And then I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of olive oil. And then keep stirring. And it came together in a nice ball, almost, right? We're almost there. Now, I'm going to turn this onto a very lightly floured surface. So Focaccia's magic is the high water content. I still actually have a little bit of yeast and water hanging out there. You don't want to miss any of the yeast mixture. That's super important. And I'm going to very lightly flour my surface. Focaccia is sticky. You can also just knead it in the bowl, but it's hard to kind of get the motion going. But you don't want to add too much flour. It is going to stick to the surface no matter what you do, truly. And that's kind of part of the magic. And it's also part of the mess. I'm going to do this directly on the table because I far prefer the table over my sticky cutting board. And I'm going to grab that ball of focaccia and I'm going to start kneading it. I'm going to fold it over itself and give it a smush. You can see that it's going to become kind of smooth because look, you can see it's wet, right? It's going to stay pretty wet, which is the goal. So if you've used too much flour, you can always incorporate a little bit more water. So I'm going to switch over to having Chris knead this so that I can watch your all's kneading techniques and answer any questions you have. So if I had this on this board, it would stick a lot more because it's not smooth. Because this is a smooth table, even though it's sticky, I can still get a really nice knead going. So we're going to knead for 10 minutes. Chris is going to come take over in the kneading station. And I'm going to watch you all knead and see what questions you need answering.
That way my kneading technique not being good.
Actually, you can show your kneading technique.
Do I have kneading technique?
No, probably not.
So you can critique mine as well.
You don't need any more flour, truly.
On my hands at all?
No.
All right, so there you go, kids.
It should be messy. It should be sloopy. So the magic, I can switch to the video here. You can watch the kneading technique.
Okay.
So push and fold is the technique. You're gonna watch Chris. He's also new at this.
Yeah, I've never done this before. This is my first time doing gentle.
So you wanna push, fold it in half.
Push.
Push, yep, and then just once.
Okay.
Grab the whole thing, fold it in half, and then push again.
Okay.
Yep, and now pick it up, kind of get it all back together. Now, we may need to add a little bit more flour. We want focaccia to be messy, but not so messy that it's unworkable. But that's still pretty good. Just keep going. It's gonna be.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hi there. Mine's not coming together.
What happened? Tell me what you did.
I put in a cup and a half of water, 3 tablespoons of olive oil, and it's still very dry.
How much flour did you use?
4 cups.
Okay. So add a little bit more water, just little by little into your bowl. It will not come together well until you start kneading it though.
Well, but it's still very floury.
Okay. Can you show me your bowl?
I can try. Can you see my bowl?
Almost, not quite, close. Now I can, yeah.
See, it's very dry.
I would go ahead and take that out and see what'll happen first.
Okay.
Because let it work on it a while and see what happens.
Okay.
We've had the oven on in here for a long time, so.
There's a lot of flour.
What oven? Do I need to preheat my oven?
Yeah, not really, because this is gonna rest for over an hour. This is like the last thing we're doing. We're making it now.
Thank you.
McKenna,
Good question.
Uh-huh.
on my measuring cup, which is a Pyrex one, did you say 300 or 350?
300.
Okay, well, when you go around the cup, that's only a cup and a third. So I'm wondering if, because she used a cup and a half, that's what makes it a little more.
That's so interesting.
I used the 300 and it seems just fine.
Well, it's
A lot of us have these Pyrex measuring cups. I don't know what
Yeah,
mine-
mine's Pyrex too. So we want sloopy dough. So let's look at Chris's. So once you've worked it for a few minutes, I'm gonna add a little bit more flour to this, but not much. What I'm gonna do is also add a little bit of olive oil. Because again, we want sloopy. Focaccia, again, is about the water content. And so the thing about measurements on all of these is in things like bread baking, it's almost impossible to get precise measurements because all flours hold different water content and all flours like have their own, and also what they can hold together really well varies.
There
I just seem to have a lot of dough.
Come on, Chris.
There we go. That's looking good.
Yeah. It took me a little while to get to this point.
You did.
For sure.
If you guys can show me your balls of dough, that'll help me. I'm adding a little olive oil to prevent sticking. I'd rather have olive oil over water in a focaccia.
Now, could you look at mine? This is Jill, and tell me if mine's too firm as opposed to, can you see it? I did use the unbleached flour.
I would add a little bit more olive oil.
Okay.
I'm going to show you mine. It's beginning to get together, but this is later. Can you see me?
Yes, I can see you, but I can only see your board. I don't see the bread. Let's see. Allison, yours looks pretty good. I might add a little bit more olive oil and a tiny bit of water. We're talking like half a teaspoon. Also, when we put it in an oiled bowl, we're gonna oil a bowl and stick it in there. It'll absorb that olive oil too, so it gets softer.
So if it's too, like, not wet enough, add a little olive oil?
A little olive oil, a little water, no more than a half a teaspoon at a time.
All right.
I don't know who that is, but that one's looking really good. Paige, yours is looking great.
Let's see.
It's getting much better. The olive oil made a difference.
Yes, the olive oil makes a difference, and the kneading makes a difference. Dave, can I see yours? Because I can see your beautiful head, but I can't see. That's starting to look pretty good. A little bit more water and a little bit more olive oil. We've been at this for about 4 minutes, maybe 5.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, so mine is a little bit drier than Chris's.
So a little bit of water and a little olive oil.
Okay.
What are you doing now?
We're going to do this for 10 minutes.
Okay.
So we're about 5-6 minutes in, at least 10. So when you do the overnight ferment, it's much easier to handle a focaccia dough because you don't handle it at all. You don't need it. You just make it, you throw it in the fridge and leave it overnight.
Chris, is yours sticky on the board? Like still sticking? Yes.
Yeah, mine's still sticking a little bit. See?
You want it to stick. We want it sticky.
Then we're happy.
Yeah.
That was making me nervous. Thank you for asking that.
So the really cool thing about water in a dough is it helps. So there are 2 things that create air pockets which make fluffiness. So when you think about like a cake batter, think about how fluffy and light that is with a lot of water, right? It like pours right off a spoon. So that works really well because that gives that cakey texture. Focaccia is between a bread and a cake. So we need a high water content, and we also need to knead it to like match, since it's not just the high content. But the yeast and the water act together to create that like puffy, beautiful texture.
Is the yeast supposed to be in here?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't put the yeast in.
Yeah, I put the yeast in my water mixture.
Oh, I didn't. All right. Well, now I have to add the yeast, right?
That's okay.
My yeast never bubbled, though.
That'll be okay. It might just take longer. It also may have bubbled and may be done bubbling. It does that too.
I have a ton, but I have a ton of dough. I don't understand.
I mean, it is a ton of dough. It's like 2-3 full handfuls, depending on the size of your hand.
Yeah, but now my yeast isn't going in. Oh, God. I think I made a mistake.
You're fine.
You'll be able to fix it. Don't worry. Okay, so we need at least 2 more minutes.
I never saw a kneading like that. That looks like a good way to mix it in. You stretch it out and then roll it?
So what he's doing is he is taking his hands, pushing forward and
Yeah.
folding back. And
Oh,
pushing
instead-
forward and then like folding it on itself. And you push forward and fold it on itself.
Okay.
So yeah, you kind of push and roll. It's a really effective technique to kind of go fast. You see like bread makers, they're doing this. And it's actually decreasing in stick.
Mhm.
It happens too. This is starting to look really good. It's starting to respond lightly. So when we touch it, it kind of starts to bounce back. If your yeast wasn't in yet, that won't quite happen, but you'll get there.
When you're telling for the future of this class and others, could you repeat the ingredients twice? Because I heard you say the salt, but I was busy adding the flour, so then I didn't know how much salt to add. So maybe
Sure
if
thing.
you said, you repeat it at least one more time.
Sure thing.
Of course.
Now, McKenna,
Okay.
very wet, very
So
wet.
add a little flour.
And it's huge compared to what Chris has there.
Maida, Chris's hands are probably 3 times the size of yours.
Oh, okay.
That's hilarious.
Add a little flour.
But it's true. It's going to look much larger in your hand. My hands are Chris's. We're both much taller than you are.
Quite a bit.
Cool.
Mine is really hard now.
Add a little more flour, you say? Okay.
Yeah, if it's too wet.
Yeah, it is definitely wet.
David's is looking pretty good. Those pages, I saw Allison's bundle. It looks pretty great. So if you've been kneading for about 10 minutes, which is at least half of you, you're going to take a bowl and give it a good oiling. Good oiling so that there's a good amount of oil in there. And I'm going to take the ball of dough.
Yeah.
I'm going to drop it in there, give it a swirl. And it doesn't even really have to be a ball perfectly because it's going to be sloopy. But you want it really nicely covered in oil so it doesn't stick.
Okay.
And then you will pop a piece of cling film over or a towel, whatever is your preference. I'm doing cling film because I don't want to oil any more of my towels today. And we're going to let this rest. Take a look at what it looks like right now because you want it to almost double in size. And if it doesn't double, that means your yeast wasn't ready or various other things. And we're going to talk about why the next batch of focaccia we're going to do, which is like the really super easy one, is really the best way to make focaccia ever. This is what you call fast focaccia. So there it is. Nice and smooth and oil covered. And stick it in a warm place in your kitchen. Not a hot place. You don't want it like on the stove or in an oven, but you want it in a warm place. So the next one requires no fancy preparation of yeast. It requires nothing but throwing stuff into a bowl and mixing it. And you're going to take
All right.
4 cups. I'm sorry?
For me?
Hello?
Hello.
Hi.
Someone had a question? Okay, cool. So we're gonna take 4 cups of flour or 500 grams, and then 1 and ways in a second. I don't think I have enough flour.
And also let them know that I just muted everybody except for you.
So we just muted up you so we can get back. There's 2. You're gonna do double. I'm gonna do a little less. Unless I can find. Chris, can you check for more all-purpose flour in the back or the pizza flour? We went through a lot more flour today than we had planned to. Oh, I found it, babe. So 4 cups of flour, 1 3/4 cups of water. Chris is looking for more of this flour for me.
Can you repeat the water?
1 3/4 cups.
In milliliters, what's that?
375?
375.
It's a lot more.
Warm water. Yep.
Because we're not kneading it, we don't have to worry about it being super wet. I have flour, it's okay. So it's slightly different, but it's not going to hurt anything.
And that's the same quantity of flour as previously.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Is that the same quantity of flour as previously?
Yes, same quantity of flour previously.
What about salt?
Same quantity of salt. Hold on, let me just make sure that that's true. Yeah. And then also the same amount of yeast.
But just put it in there.
Just throw it in there.
Okay.
2 teaspoons of yeast, 1.5, 2.
2 teaspoons.
How much yeast?
2 teaspoons. That is cool. I forgot my yeast. Fun. Maida, I just pulled a you. I forgot my yeast.
You're famous, Maida.
That's okay though, because I'm gonna throw my yeast in here. I added more flour because my yeast is very, I had slow acting yeast, so I had a whole lot of yeast going on.
That was very liquid.
It will be, and it really, again, depends on your flour. My bread flour is really finely milled, so it's not that liquidy compared to others. But what you want texture-wise, 1 second, mine is almost there. I will show you so you can get there. Because we're managing everybody's different flour. In Europe, it's much easier in a lot of ways because we have our flour typed out by number. David's like, yes, 00 and 65 and 55. But that is the texture you want.
That's like paste.
Yep, thick paste. I mean, that's what you want. And then you will oil a bowl. With a really nice coat of oil.
I think Maida has a question. I don't think she realizes her mic is on. Unmute her.
Okay.
Maida, did you have a question?
Yes, do you put the olive oil in?
Into the bowl. The empty bowl.
Not in the batter.
Correct.
Yeah.
Do you put 3 tablespoons of olive oil in the dough?
Not in the dough, in the bowl.
Okay.
That looks good. And then you'll throw a piece of cling film or a towel over it and stick it in the fridge for at least 12 hours. It will double in size. It'll get really funny looking. It kind of starts to look like a brain. It usually comes up for this bowl. It'll come up about here. and it'll start to get really bubbly and really loose. And that's what you're looking for. So that one, obviously, we are not cooking today. There you go. Okay. Yep, put it in the fridge. Okie-dokie. And that'll sit in the fridge for 12 to 24 hours. It's going to be very slow. It depends on your yeast. It depends on your flour, how quickly it'll do its doubling. It starts to look like a blob, like the movie The Blob. Turn the light back on too. Is it getting dark over there? Yeah. That'll do.
How much will this double? How big will this focaccia get?
The one in the fridge?
Yes.
So it will definitely officially double. I have had it like overtake the bowl.
I'm prepared for that. That's good.
Yeah, it might overtake the bowl. We hope it doesn't. But so here's the thing about dry active yeast, right? If it's brand new, it's super duper active. And if it's been around a while, less active, but still active. So it really depends, because how warm was your water when you mixed the dough? How long did you let it sit? All of that really factors in how much it overtakes the bowl. I have made the same focaccia recipe with the same yeast and the same flour like 3 times over 6 months, right? Maybe same yeast that I bought like a pack of 12. As it goes, it changes how it reacts. That's why bread baking is so often left to the expert. But it's so worth doing because it's so pleasant. And it makes the house smell really good. Any other questions?
I had a quick question.
Yeah.
You say 12 hours? Leave it 12 hours?
Yeah.
Okay.
The one in the fridge.
Does it have to be in the fridge if I'm just going to have it for dinner in 12 hours, or?
The first one we did, you can have it sooner. The other one has to be cold fermented because you didn't need it.
Oh, so it has to be cold.
Yeah, it's gotta be in the fridge. The kneaded one, you'll activate. So the 2 things happen in bread baking, right? You activate the gluten either by a long fermentation, and that helps the bread stay together and get stretchy and really like delightful with a nice crumb and all the bubbles in it. Either that or kneading. They both affect like how spongy and bright and delightful a bread is. So a slow fermentation can replace a lot of kneading. You can also do both, but with focaccia, this like sloopy, it's basically a no-knead bread recipe with extra leavening in it so that it gets a lot of great bubbles.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So we're gonna move on to the Pistou. And I need to know what the state of your beans is. Meaning, I know it's a very personal question. What is the state of your beans? What is the state of your human beans?
Okay, this is Jill. Hi,
Bill.
Hi. I had to have canned beans, except for this green beans, they were there. So I have cannoli, or kind of whatever that is, and I have chickpeas open. And I also have pinto beans if you think that's better, or that's it. Oh, kidney beans.
Okay, awesome.
They were all canned.
I also see Allison has 2 things of canned beans.
Which one is cannellini or butter beans?
I would go with cannellini. And Paige has, are they dried? Hold on, you're muted. Unmute.
Yeah, these are soaked. I
I
have
can.
and then I also have something called kaduki. I don't know. They're red beans, and these are just small. They don't have cranberry.
Are they fried or are they fresh, Paige?
These are canned.
Okay, great. So we got canned. Does anybody have not canned beans? Oh,
I've got
Yeah.
some.
Go ahead.
so David has Fevs. Me
So
too.
I've got a combination of canned and fresh beans.
Yep, that's what I have too. Beautiful. So yours are fresh, delightful. So no one has dried beans, correct?
I did. Oh,
you
but
do?
I soaked them. I'm Susie, and I
Hi,
soaked them
Susie.
overnight.
Perfect.
So they're ready to go.
So 100% Susie, let's get your beans in a boiling pot of water.
All right.
You don't have to start boiling. Throw them in a pot of water and get it to a boil. Everybody else has some time. Yours will need some time. And anybody who has fresh beans, which I think might just be David because that's a very French thing, being in France and having fresh beans. That's what we have too. Go ahead and get those shelled. And I think that covers that. So we're going to talk about Pistou while David is shelling his beans and talk about what it is and what we're going to do. I'm going to give you all the steps now, and then I'll do it step by step as we go. Cool? So Pistou is a traditional spring soup in the Provence region of France that is very similar to a minestrone. It is made up of beans. So I have fresh cranberry and fresh fava beans, also called Fevs here. So that's my base. And I also have some nice tomatoes. I'm going to do a mixture. You'll want at least 2, if not 3 tomatoes of about this size. I also have, I'm going to use some spring onion just because I have them. You don't have to use spring onion, shallot, or any other type of onion is just fine. I just have these beautiful spring onions, so they're a really nice fit for the stew. And I'm missing something. Ah, green beans. So just nice haricot vert in France, just regular old beautiful green beans, not the types you shell, right? Just regular old green beans. And that is it. Oh, and zucchini. I forgot. Courgette or zucchini. I was like, I know there's something I'm missing. I have both red, yellow, and green. Just one of each. So that is my Pistou. Except for the Pistou de resistance that we're missing is actually the sauce itself, which is a pesto minus some things. So a French Pistou is a pesto minus the nuts, primarily. So that is what we're going to be making. Any questions?
I couldn't find fresh basil, so I bought pesto. Will that be okay?
That'll totally do.
Okay.
You'll just miss the making of the Pistou, but I can follow along and probably figure out how to do it next time.
My shallots are not cut. How should I cut them?
We're going to talk about that right now. Mine aren't either, obviously. These are basically like pseudo shallots, right? With just pretty green, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong place. Pretty green things. So we're actually going to slice them together. So don't worry. Obviously, my beans aren't cut either. The only thing I did before was shell the beans to save us some time. That's it. So we are going to start by cutting our onions. Whatever onion you have, whether it's an onion or a shallot or spring onions like me. Move my stuff out of the way.
Et voila.
I'm going to take it, whether it is a spring onion, a shallot, or a regular onion. I'm going to slice it. So the way that you'll slice it is, if you don't know how to slice an allium, I'll do a quick demo. If you do, great. Allison better know. She was at Knife Skills yesterday. I'd be really concerned if she's like, wait, how? What? especially Maida and Jill too, since they came to the Courageous Cooking School in France.
Yeah.
But also we're in Kneaded Dough. So with an allium, you want the root end on one side and the stem end on the other. I'm actually going to discard the greens. While they were really beautiful when I bought them, it's been 24 hours and they're a little sad, which is actually strange. That was very fast. So I'm going to cut off the non-root end, and then I'm going to slice lengthwise from root to leaf end. And then I'm just going to take my knife and slice from the leaf end to the root end. Just like that. So if you have shallot, same thing. You'll have to peel off more skin than I did because these are kind of fresh and low on the skin.
How many shallots?
What about if you have only, if you have scallions?
Oh, one second, we're having a technical difficulty.
You're fine. Just turn it.
Here, we'll just switch to this one.
I
We're good.
Okay. Maida, you have a question?
Yes, it's only, what about scallions? I don't have shallots.
That's fine. Just chop them however you want to chop them. Just chop the white part and keep some of the green. Totally up to you.
All right.
The world is your oyster. The world is your Pistou.
What's our quantity?
No, I didn't.
Paige, could you repeat that?
Can you, how many alliums do we want? A cup? Two
I would
cups?
say you want, I'm doing 2 because they're small. If you had a big onion, 1 would be plenty. If your shallots are really tiny, maybe 3. If you're using, sorry, I'm laughing because Ian literally just ate a piece of spring onion off my board. If you're running scallions, like a nice small bunch of the whites with a little bit of the greens for color, you need enough to kind of flavor the base. But we have other things going in that are flavoring the base too. We're definitely not putting any garlic in yet because garlic is going to be in the pesto. But Jill, since you don't have fresh garlic, you may want to smush up 1 piece of garlic to throw in. So I've got my spring onion, and I'm going to go ahead and throw that in some olive oil on a low heat. I don't want to add any color, but I do want to give it some time to sweat.
Does it matter what pan or pot?
No, I mean, you're going to put it in a soup pot.
So could you start in the soup pot?
Yep, absolutely. Start in the soup pot. So I'm not super precious or worried about my temperature because it will come up and it will all even out. And I have other things to worry about in my kitchen right now. So I'm just throwing that in and I'll let that go for a minute. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn a second pot of water onto boil. So I'm going to turn another pot on to boil. I don't know, a fair amount. Halfway through. We're going to have to leave everyone because, that's good. Okay. I'm going to switch because I need it to boil faster than this one will. Actually, I'm going to switch one more. So now I've got a pot of water to boil. There we go. Next, I am going to take my squash, whatever squash I have, I've got 2, and I'm going to roughly cube it. You have a question? So I'm just going to chop my squash. The way I'm going to do it is cutting in half, cutting the edges off, cutting it in half, cutting it in half one more time. And then I'm going to take it and just get nice 1/2 inch, 2 centimeters. For those of you who are in the metric system, chunks. And I'm listening to my onions. I hear that they're starting to make noise. I'm gonna go give them a stir. I don't want color on them. I want the flavor, but not the color. Okay. Cutting up my other squash. If anybody has questions, go ahead and jam one into the comments or unmute yourself and go ahead and ask. Meh. And I'm currently deciding in the back of my head if I actually care about blanching my green beans. Having a moment, I'm going, well, I could. And I also could just let them go in the soup, but blanching holds their color better, so I am going to blanch them. That's what I'm currently pondering as I'm cutting up the zucchini.
Was that the only reason we did the water?
Well, for those of us who have uncooked beans, I'm going to cook the beans in the water because they need to cook longer than everything else.
Okay.
And also then to blanch the green beans. I'm going to blanch the green beans first and then throw my beans in. For those of you who have cooked, which is everybody else but the Frenchies, those of us in France, you'll just blanch your green beans. So once you cut up your zucchini, it's the only thing we're going to worry about cutting up right now. Because we're going to blanch our green beans. So I'm still waiting for my water to boil. I'm sure you probably are too. I'm going to wait until I've seen that everybody is done with their zucchini, and then we're going to start the Pistou, the actual like Pistou sauce of the Pistou soup. Checking my time on our Focaccia. It's been a little less than a half hour, so we're going to let it hang out longer. And now I'm just literally waiting for a watch pot to boil. That's fun. Because I again decided, well, maybe I should blanch my green beans. That'll make such a prettier presentation. So while we're waiting, this is a grand time to talk about the decoration on our Focaccia, for those of you who are still chopping. As you can see, I have a lot of choices. You do not need to have this many. This was just to like have choices. So we'll just give you kind of a look about what I'm playing with. You can kind of start thinking about yours. We need no answers yet. Just want to give you something to look at while we're waiting for hot water to boil. And the other thing you can do is get a bowl with some ice and water for the blanching. And if you don't want to blanch your green beans, you don't have to. They will hold their chlorophyll, which means their bright green loveliness, far better if you do so. Now, if you're like, I'm not feeling precious today, McKenna, that's fine. You do you. And don't worry about this step. You can literally just chop up the beans and stick them in your soup. Not the end of the world. And my beans are almost cooked, or my water is almost boiling. Is that even fun to look at? Look at our water boiling. Watch spot. And so here are my spring onions. They're chilling. They're getting a little brown for my liking. They'll be fine, but adding a little bit more oil to my food. Okay. Any questions? How big should the courgette be? Chunks. You could do smaller. I like mine kind of chunky. This is from the skinny side of the zucchini. This is from like the big fat middle.
How about the green beans?
Really,
The size of the green beans?
we will blanch full, and then we'll cut them up.
Oh, okay,
Just because they're easier to fish out of the pot whole.
okay, thank you.
Fishing out tiny little pieces of green beans, like let's say I cut them to the size that I actually want for my soup. Think about fishing out that many pieces versus just whole beans. So that's the only reason I'm not chopping them first. I could, that'd be a waste of time, but then all of you are gonna be fiddling with pulling your green beans out of the blanching water and it will be less than fun. Okay, so my pot is still not boiling. Is anybody still chopping vegetables? Yes, ice water for the beans would be great. You may have been chopping when I said that. I was like, we can go to the bowl, get a bowl of ice and water. But that'll help. That's what we want to do to stop the blanching of the beans. I'm sorry, I keep looking at actually your faces rather than the filming device. My apologies. Getting used to that. It's like, you're over here, even though you're over here. I'm just going through some of my big guys and just giving them a halvesies. Mostly because they cook at different speeds, but like, that doesn't really bother me in this type of soup because then I get different textures. And one of the nice things is you can actually get the different textures from the different types of food. And I'm all about texture.
How long do you blanch them? My water's boiling.
3 minutes.
Okay.
So I'm not going to do all of these because this is a lot. My water's almost boiling. I'm going to do a handful. It really depends on how much green bean you want compared to your zucchini. So a pistou has no recipe, truly. It is what you have around in the spring in your store cupboard, not store cupboard, but like what you have around growing in your garden. So there is no right or wrong ratio. It's what you like. Green beans are not my favorite food, so I'm going to be heavy on the zucchini and heavy on these beans because I prefer the texture of these to green beans themselves, the texture and flavor. So again, I'm going about a handful because I've got a lot of beans. I'm cooking for multiple people, not just myself or a spouse. I'm cooking for 4 for the next couple days. My water's almost boiling. Those of you who have boiling water, congratulations. Maybe you can blanch your green beans for 3 minutes and then fish them out and drop them in some ice cold water. Yes, question.
Yes, could I use asparagus instead of green beans?
Absolutely. I put asparagus in my pistou when I have it too. The only asparagus I have right now is these little cute guys, which is for my focaccia, so I'm not using them because they won't hold up well because they're not thick enough. They're the like wild asparagus that grows around here. Regular asparagus is perfect, sliced up, but again, blanched is always better with something like that.
Did you blanch them?
I would blanch them, yes.
Okay, because my green beans went bad.
You're waiting. It happens. This is the joy of pistou. You make do with pistou. So, I'm still not boiling. This is like the most annoying episode of watching paint dry. But let's talk about something else I wanted to talk about, but I can't remember, so that's fine. Since we're all going to be blanching for a second, I'm not going to start the pistou after blanching. I am good to go now. Yay! So I'm going to give that 3 minutes and then drop them in my boiling water. And then we're going to get started on making our pistou sauce, the actual pesto. So, where's that fresh garlic we got today? Oh, got it. Okay. This is not fresh. Is it? Is this what's new in here? Okay. So, depending on the age of your garlic will depend on how much you want it. This is brand new from the store. Yay.
That's what not fresh garlic looks like.
That's what not fresh garlic looks like. Brand new from the store today.
Straight to the compost.
First day off lockdown.
There's some more on that.
So I gotta unblanch, I gotta grab my beans. So this is a good clove of garlic. We had some not so nice cloves. This is a big clove. And that's all I'm gonna use as my starter. And I'm pausing to remove the beans. We move things around since, there we go. I'm just gonna drop them in the powder. I'm gonna turn it off because it's gotten just the right amount of color for what I want, and I'm gonna make sure that it doesn't burn. Again, blanching fixes the chlorophyll. And I'm just gonna leave them there. Now, David, with you and your fresh beans like me, you'll wanna make sure that you have enough water in your pot to well cover the beans, but not too much. You can always add a little bit more. The thing about Pistou is you don't use stock, which means that you are flavoring it with other things, hence the pesto sauce. You can use stock if you want more flavor, but the whole point of Pistou is not to use stock. That was something I learned because I always make my Pistou with stock. I might still add a stock cube because I like the flavor, but it's not traditional. So I have enough water to throw my beans in. And I need to start them because they're fresh, they're gonna take a while. Those of you with canned beans, you can put your beans in as one of the last things you do, which is delightful. Okay, ready for the Pistou. Everybody chopped? Everybody blanched?
No,
So right now, though, there's nothing in that pot but the shallots, right?
That's it.
Okay.
And I turned mine off because they were good.
So you put the
Just
garlic,
checking with David. David, are you blanched?
I've just put them into cold water now.
Perfect. You did have some shelling to do, so I understand.
So what should I be doing next? I've got the courgettes diced. I've got the peas blanched.
Awesome. So we're gonna make the Pistou now, the sauce.
Okay.
Over here.
you put the garlic in with the shallot,
No,
beans?
no, nope. You are going to make the pesto sauce that starts with garlic. So the
Oh,
pesto, you can either make it in a mortar and pestle, or you can make it in a food processor or blender. Those are your choices. So whatever is easy for you. There is no right or wrong answer. I'm doing it in a mortar and pestle, so because a blender is really loud. That's truly the only reason. Being on a blender or a food processor on one of these videos is borderline misery for the viewer. So yeah, we'll meet you all just in case you decide to use a blender or a food processor. I would not blame you. That is exactly what I would do. I do not make Pistou very often anymore with anything other than a blender or a food processor. But again, so because I had such a huge clove, I'm giving it a chop. If you have normal sized cloves or small cloves, you can just give it a good smash with your knife and that'll be good enough. Salt. And you're gonna take a nice sprinkling of salt. And then, of course, the star of the show. That's the star of the show. The basil. So I am going to smush my garlic with the salt for a little bit to get that going. And if you're blitzing it in a blender, just go ahead and add like a good 2 or 3 handfuls of basil without the super rough stems. If you're, again, blitzing, some of these tender stems up here won't matter, but down here, no bueno. But I can't do that because I'm mortar and pestling, but if I were blending, I would cut them like there and then just blend them. There is flavor in the stem. You can even see. There's flavor in the stem. Yeah. I know, the basil does smell good.
Throw the beans. Sure. So I turn the burner off.
No, leave it on. Okay. So I have basil. That's like 1 handful. That's like 2 handfuls. There you go. A little bit more. There we go. So that's like a good 2 solid handfuls. See? Big hands. Lots of basil. So I'm going to start by giving those garlic cloves a nice smush. I'm going to give these basil leaves, since I'm doing it in a mortar and pestle, a quick rough chop just to simplify my job. If you are doing this in a blender, throw them in whole. Be unprecious. And I'm going to do it a little bit at a time. Now, if you're doing this in a blender, the last thing you need to add right this moment is olive oil. The way I suggest doing it is adding enough olive oil to like give the basil a wading pool up to their ankles to hang in and giving it a blitz and seeing if it becomes the texture you want. Now, the texture of Pistou is a personal preference. Some people like it really tasty. Some people like it more like a oily vinaigrette. There is no right or wrong answer. Mine will be kind of in between, and you'll see. And it'll take a while. So you guys can blend to your heart's content or mortar and pestle your heart's content, whatever you're doing. So that's starting to break up really nicely. I'm going to add another batch of basil leaves. Also, if you notice, the color is so nice. That's really the magic. If you're not making much headway if you're mortar, I don't think any of you are actually pounding that knee, are you? Mortar and pestling. I can't imagine that you're actually mortaring and pestling. You are. Bonus points. I'm getting made fun of for my choice of words. Also, I really wish I were blending right now. I'd be done.
If you're putting it in the blender, what speed? If you're putting it in the blender, what speed?
It doesn't matter.
Well, you wouldn't want to
Really?
liquefy it.
It doesn't matter. You can totally liquefy it. I mean, I put it on like medium, but it depends on your blender, man. I don't know what type of blender you have.
I have a real good one.
So not too high. Yeah. I love that. I have a really good one. Fair.
Okay.
So I'm adding a little bit of oil. The really nice thing about garlic is it acts as an emulsifier, so it pulls the pesto sauce together. And I actually prefer a smoother pesto. Again, I'm doing this simply because the sound is atrocious. The last time we did this class 5, it took me 20 minutes. So I'm not gonna get it that nice and blended. Yes. There you go. So Chris is taking over for that. So once you have made your pesto, we can talk about it. You can taste it and tell me what wish it had more of or less of. And the last thing we're gonna add is a little bit of Parmesan or Pecorino or Mignolette, some sort of hard, delicious cheese. I'm using Parmesan because it's my preferred flavor. Traditionally, it would be Mignolette, which is an orange cheese. Unless you're closer to Italy where we are, then it would still be Parmesan. Put that up too. There you go.
Somebody got the cops called on.
Someone got the cops calling them. The pesto's just too hot to handle.
This kitchen smells so good, somebody called all. Yeast.
And I'm cheating. I'm adding a little bit of wild garlic to mine because I can, because I found it at the grocery store today. So this is wild garlic. In the States, it's called wild onions. They're similar. They're similar. Texture of Pistou in blender. Choice. You want it? Let me see. That looks great. Absolutely. That's beautiful. Some Pistou, so my our crepe lady, Celine, she makes Pistou and it's like this texture.
So how much Parmesan do you put in to flavor it?
I put in about a tablespoon. It depends. I tasted mine and it was not that salty, so I was able to put in more Parmesan. I like it really Parmesan-y. Very salty and very garlicky. So I'm gonna put in more basil and more oil. My garlic is really strong right now. So what you're looking for is a balance of flavors.
We haven't added any oil so far, right?
You would not have, unless you're in a blender, you can add oil. Are you in a mortar and pestle?
No, I'm switched to the blender. I gave up.
Perfect, then add some oil. Add like, just enough to give it, I said a bath up to its ankles.
Give it what? Repeat that?
A bath up to its ankles in the blender. Like if you imagine it like the basil is a body, you just want enough oil up to its ankles.
Okay.
Another question. I chopped it with a knife, the wild garlic, and then I am breaking it up in here with the mortar and pestle, but otherwise just in the blender. Also, we're probably still going to blend this just in a separate room off camera because this is going to take too long. And it's time to make things. Just you're it. You got 45 minutes. Okie dokie. So you should check your beans when you get a chance, David. They're probably ready to come out for now. Everything. Can't find anything. No, go blend it.
That's my question.
You may want more olive oil. Just taste it. So I need to quickly chop my tomatoes. I'm just gonna chop them roughly. I'm not concasseing. I'm not doing anything fancy. If you want to take the seeds out, you can. You don't have to. I'm gonna rough chop them. And then we're gonna go manage our focaccia.
About how much pesto are you supposed to have?
Half a cup to a cup.
Okay. I have a lot more basil.
If you have a lot more basil, make more pesto. Or use it for something else. Yeah, I used 2 whole bunches
lovely in a gin and tonic.
It is lovely in a gin and tonic. Okay. So a couple things have to happen in the next few minutes. You need to check on your focaccia. It worked out.
Yay!
Remember I said I had slow yeast? 2 hours later, I got focaccia. So you should go check on your focaccia. It should have doubled in size. It should be light and spongy. Yay! Now, you're going to find a cooking container that has walled sides. Metal is fine, glass is fine. Size is immaterial as long as it's big enough, which is kind of a personal choice. I'm doing it on the smaller side because mine hasn't had quite as much as I would like it to rise. And now is when you also want to preheat your oven to 425 or 210 if you're in Celsius.
Oh God, Mike.
I'm going to oil my baking dish. And I'm going to take my ball of dough and hand it as little as possible. Take the upside, fold it in on itself, and then put it in a baking dish and stretch it out without trying to get out too much of the air. It worked. Never any doubt. Ta-ta! See how the other one's doing? So slow yeast does work. It just takes 2 to 2.5 hours. That one did its thing. That's my other one. I'm gonna cook them both so we can see the difference. See if there is a difference. Oh, babe, I can put olive oil in the back.
Could you say again about the stretching? I was looking for a pot.
Yep. Just stretching it to the edge of the baking dish without trying to push out too much of the air. I'm not like smushing it, right? I'm just stretching it.
Okay. And it's determined by the size of the pan?
Determined by the size of the pan. This is probably like a 10-8.
Yeah, I believe you.
And you grease it, correct?
Yes.
I have greased it with olive oil.
Okay.
And my oven is at 400 degrees Fahrenheit, 425 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, once it gets
10
there.
Celsius.
Can I use a roasting pan? Is that okay?
Yeah, totally.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
If the dough is not double, because it really has only been about an hour and 15 minutes that we set aside. Should we wait?
It should have doubled in size in about 45 if your yeast is super active.
Okay. Can you see mine?
That looks double in size?
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we're now going to put this aside again and let it sit. We're going to check on it and stretch it one more time in about 10 minutes.
Okay.
We're now going to put together our Pistou.
Fish that out.
Go ahead and fish it out, yeah. So now we're going to put together a Pistou. So you've got your onions. Mine got a little over colored because I was talking to you all instead, but it'll still be fine. And I'm going to put in my courgettes. What is that?
What are you putting them in? Water or just an empty pan?
Empty pot to start. And I'm taking my green beans.
This is not the pot with the shallots?
This is the pot with the shallots.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Good question. And I'm going to cut my green beans into bite-sized pieces, my asparagus, whatever veg I have that I haven't cut yet. I'm not putting in the tomatoes yet. No tomatoes yet. They will become a mushy mess. If you are doing fresh beans, they go in now. If you're doing hand cooked beans, give it a few minutes and I'll give you a cue.
Could you repeat that, please?
Don't put in your beans yet, unless they are not canned.
Do we have to rinse the canned beans?
It's best to, but the bean juice actually provides a nice thickener. So if you want your pesto a little thicker, you don't have to.
But cannelloni beans, right?
Yep, you can rinse or not, but you're not putting them in yet. So
I want to get them ready.
So this is my onions, my courgette, and my green beans. And I'm going to put in enough water to cover.
Is better water or stock?
I'm doing water because it's what's traditional. Stock is a perfectly fine thing to do.
Okay.
With my fresh
So I
beans-
have put enough water to cover, planning for my tomatoes.
So should my fresh
My
should
tomatoes
my
aren't
fresh
in
fava beans
there.
be in
Since
there as
your
well?
beans won't be, you'll also want to plan for those beans. And I'm going to put this on the pot to simmer. What did you say, David?
Should my fresh fava beans be in here as well?
Yes, since you're fresh fava beans, yeah, definitely want them in there.
Okay.
Cool. So,
I'm sorry, how much?
just water to cover. So I put about that much because I wanted room for my tomatoes. I put that much to cover because I wanted room for my tomatoes. So everything but my tomatoes is in there, or canned beans.
What about the pesto? If that's not, is that in there?
Not in there yet. Nope. Just your hard veg.
How many tomatoes could you eat?
I chopped 2.
Okay. And I'm going to use stock if I have it.
Not before I
Pesto.
How much water did you say?
To cover.
To
It
cover
depends
what?
on how much veg you have. You just need to have that much coverage.
Just what? Say that again. Pardon me.
Just to cover the vegetables. That's all. With a little bit of space.
Okay.
And are we heating it up to boiling or what?
To simmer. Yep. Bring it to a boil and then we'll simmer it. Okay. So the only things you should have out of your pesto are your tomatoes and your canned beans and your pesto sauce. Everything else should be in there.
The green beans or my asparagus go in?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
No salt, pepper, nothing.
time.
Not yet. Because, so the reason why I'm saying not yet, beans don't do well cooked in salt, and David and I still have beans to cook. So you could, but it won't actually do anything. The salt will add when we add the tomatoes and the canned beans. Okay. So go check on your little focaccia buddies and smoosh them out to the sides of the pan again if they've shrunk a little.
What size cut the tomato?
Just leave them to the side.
Pardon? What size do you cut it to?
Oh, whatever you want. How
Oh,
big mine are. I like big humps,
let me see.
but you could do smaller.
Okay.
Okay, so our focaccia buddies need to get designed. That's what we're here to do. They need some more time to reprove and re-rise, but we can design them before that happens.
Sorry.
So that you talk. It's okay, no problem. So you're gonna make sure the top of your focaccia has a good light coating of olive oil on it. If you have a brush, that's the easiest way. I don't. So I'm just making sure it has a nice, even, light coating of olive oil on them. Do two different ones just so you can see some different ideas. And remember when I said you had to have at least 4 of the following in the list? That was so you could decorate your little focaccia buddies. So I oiled the tops. I'm gonna give them a nice sprinkling of salt. About a half teaspoon to a teaspoon on each side. And your goal is to decorate them without smushing them. You don't have to press very hard to get this stuff to stick. So I am going to do the way I do it, because I think it's the easiest rather than going in with a plan on what the design I want to like. I have the ingredient I'm excited about. And I'm just gonna cut it down to size for what I think will look aesthetically pleasing. So here I'm just gonna do some like little wild asparagus. It's like treating the bottom of my pan like it's a field. And then I'm coming in with wild garlic after that. You can do anything your heart desires. The one recommendation I have for you is that you put the ingredients relatively close together because they shrink. By the way, this is only like my 10th time doing this, so what happened? Chris?
Can I do it again? Or we did?
Okay, nice fix.
Do you press them in or just lie them on top?
I'm not pressing them in because they'll puff, the bread will puff up around it. So I'm mostly just lying it on top, especially because I don't want to press it right now because it's in a rising phase. I will go in right before I put it in the oven and kind of give it a floop, floop, floop. I have little nasturtium leaves. They're really pretty. I'm gonna put that one over here because it looks like a lily pad. And I literally have no plans, friends. I'm just going with like what I see. Now, if you want to use shallots, you don't stick a whole shallot on, excuse me. You slice them. You can do all sorts of really cool things with them if you get a nice slice, because they separate really beautifully. So like, pull up center. So I might like put that on one of my lily pads.
Oh, look at that.
Cherry tomatoes, if you're going to use them, you want to cut them in half I just give them like a quick dab on a towel. So like, look, I got a little, I don't know, thing happening there. If you have ingredients that you are excited about and you don't know how to use them, just ask and I can tell you best case.
Okay, I have the peppers. I have red, yellow, and orange bell peppers. Should I just make slices?
I would slice them in slices and kind of turn them into flowers. So example, this is a small one,
Okay.
but here's an example, right? Take a slice of bell pepper, get some slices going,
Right.
and then you could put them in like a corner. Here, I'll do it over here. Boop, boop, boop. A little stretch. I'm happy to answer any questions about different ideas. If you have an ingredient that you don't know what to do with it, feel free to ask. So like I did that, and I have some olives that are, you know, brown. So maybe I'll make a little like the inside of the flower brown.
Could you use spices? I mean, herbs. I have rosemary and thyme.
I would use fresh herbs, not dried for this part.
No, I have fresh.
Yes, rosemary and thyme work great. Another really fun one is dill. Like here's what I could do with dill. Look, I can just literally add it to my scape. See? So it looks like a little branch.
Uh-huh. Well, mine is chopped up, but
That's okay, you can do that too.
I'm going to use rosemary branches.
Yes, absolutely. Here's one of my little things in the corner. Let's see if I can finish that weird little lily pad I started. If I can get actual wings out of this bad boy. So one of the really cool things, I was able to do this with a different shallot earlier, but this shallot is not happy with me. You can kind of like spread them out. So pause, throw your tomatoes and your cooked beans into your pea stew. And now's a good time to give it a good salt and pepper. Or to add a stock cube if you want more flavor. I, again, am going traditional. There's no requirement for that. Stock will make it taste much better.
So did you put the beans in? I didn't hear you.
Yep. The green,
So now-
I just put, yeah, you would put your cooked beans in now.
So everything but the tomatoes?
No, now tomatoes too.
Okay. What about the pesto?
No, pesto goes in when it's in a bowl. It's the last thing you put in.
Oh, okay.
It is a very good question. So that is going to sit there for a while, which is why it's a perfect time to finish your focaccia designs. Wash dishes right now.
Sure.
It's hard for me to hear them. Yeah, it's
Sure.
really hard. Any other ingredients questions about decorating your focaccia? I'd love to see when you're ready to share.
If I don't have much liquid, does that mean I didn't put in enough? I mean, it seems to be all vegetable and no liquid.
So add more water.
All right. Well, I'm
That's
using,
simple.
I have stock.
No, totally. Yeah, I mean, it just depends on how much water is kind of coming off in your simmer.
Yeah. I put the fire up again.
Any Any questions about decorations, ingredients? I'm making my flowers or suns, whatever you want to call it, symmetrical, since I had the questions about peppers, what I do with it.
Is this too much, McKenna? Have I overdone it?
No, I put
That's
more.
gorgeous.
That looks beautiful.
Well,
I would actually do more because it'll shrink down. So you'll actually notice there's a ton of space.
okay.
So like that's great. So like I'm gonna leave up here kind of empty because that's the aesthetic I'm going for. But this one I'm gonna fill almost the entire thing. I was shocked by how much shrinkage there was. Like every time I do it, I'm always like, oh yeah. Because the ingredients shrink up more than the bread. So when it looks really chaotic is about the right amount of food on it. Wow. I know, it's quite surprising. Anybody else want to show off what they're doing?
Can you see mine?
Yeah.
Oh.
Nice.
Should I put more on or is that enough?
Let me see it again. I saw the colors, but I didn't see how. Oh, it was Jill. I was looking at Maida. That looks great. You can put some more in the bottom corners where the green is, just because those spaces will be quite empty.
Okay.
I'm not
So I'm going monochromatic on one and polychromatic on the other. By the way, I am by no means an expert in this. I am not Instagram. I'm not Pinterest worthy. I might be Instagram worthy, but this is something that I've been playing with. It's like one of my new fun things because why not? Also, just teaching you just focaccia was like meh. And it's not easy to decorate the overnights, for the record. They are very, very sloopy. I will tell you before we're done what you should do with it, though, to do it correctly. Also, if you have flowers, that looks really nice, too. So make sure your soup isn't boiling. You want it to be at a nice simmer. I had to pause because I was too into my design. So I'm adding a little bit more salt and a little bit more pepper to mine. Again, since I don't have any stock in it, I'm just flavoring with salt, pepper, the Pistou, and lemon juice. Now remember, the Pistou has a lot of flavor. One of the nice things about this is that you're not eating it raw on bread, right? So like your Pistou can be strong because it's going to be a dominant flavor in the soup. The soup itself isn't, the soup is like the carrier for the pesto sauce. Does that make sense? Now, if your focaccia doesn't get all like big and cakey and fluffy, that means your yeast wasn't quite ready yet. That's it. The nice thing is there are two types of focaccia. There's Ligurian focaccia, which is the big cakey, bright, puffy thing. And then there's more like pizza focaccia, which is more of the southern style. So if it didn't work out, it just means that your yeast hadn't quite done what it needed to like become its best self. Just needed a little bit more life coaching or something. I don't know what else to do with mine. I have to get more creative, guys.
Can I show you mine?
Yeah.
Can I show you mine?
Absolutely.
Can you see it?
Lovely. Yeah. Perfect.
Now, you said to add the pistou, what is it? To the soup.
Mhm.
Oh, we're adding the pesto to the soup?
Nope.
No.
Do not put pesto in the soup until it is plated in a bowl.
Oh, and what about,
It stays raw.
you said salt and pepper?
Salt and pepper, yeah.
Okay.
So your pesto is done when your vegetables are to the doneness you like. That's it. And there is no magic formula for that. If you like things a little bit toothier, great. Mine's close. I'm probably going to regret not putting in stock because I prefer that flavor. But again, I went traditional.
McKenna, I have lemons left over.
Yes, we are going to put lemon in the soup. You can also slice lemon and put it on top of the focaccia because it'll get really nice and caramelized. In fact,
Paige is pointing.
pointing.
When do you add the lemon?
Not yet. When it's done, basically. We'll balance the flavor when it's done. Mine still needs a few minutes. Okay.
McKenna, I didn't do the refrigerator one, so I can just wait till tomorrow and do it, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay. That's what I'm doing for my green one with the lemon for my son. And then this one's not finished, but it's where it's going to be for now.
I'm just wondering, when I speak, do you see me?
Yeah.
Oh, oh, all right. I just wanted to make sure because I had to keep turning the microphone on and off. I don't know. For some reason.
What?
Nita had a concern about having to turn her mic on and off throughout the class.
Yeah, we turn it off for you.
Oh,
When we turn it off
oh, I see.
so that there's not extra background noise. And then you have to turn it on to talk. Okay, so I'm gonna set these aside because mine still need some time. Yours probably does too. My pistou is done to how I like it. So there's my pistou. If yours is not quite done, that's okay. I'm just going to show you how to balance the flavors. So this is basically for me vegetables and salt and pepper, right? That's what it is. I'm going to add a fair amount of lemon juice. I'm doing about the juice of almost a whole lemon. And when you taste the pistou, you didn't use stock, you'll be like, well, that's kind of flavorless. But you do want to find a nice balance of salt and lemon in it. So you're looking to find a nice balance of that. That was it. Quite happy. Since I have two people here who can tell me what that's like, you might be surprised.
Oh yeah.
I have two people. I don't pay them to actually answer positively. They'll tell me if I need to adjust it. Great. So I'm going to go grab some bowls, or Ian will grab some bowls.
Camera's gone off.
Okay.
So how much lemon did you put in? Full lemon, right?
Yes, David?
The juice of a full lemon?
Yeah. You have to look at my size of pot. So I have a pretty big pot. So I'm looking for a really nice balance of lemon and salt because that's really what brings out the flavor of the veg. Otherwise, it's just vegetables and water. I'm going to spoon this in to a bowl. You can see the color is pretty pallid because it just has like a little bit of tomato to color it. And then something magic happens when you start the pistou, or when you stir in the pistou rather.
Now, do you ever do like the minestrone with a little bit of little spaghetti thing?
That would make it minestrone.
Okay, so that's the Pistou recipe.
Yeah, it's just not part of what pistou is traditionally pistou.
Okay.
So see how it becomes immediately bright green? That's what we're going for.
How much salt typically would you put in? To that
So
kind of-
in my big pot, I had about 2 tablespoons,
Really? That
maybe
much?
3 total. I'm kind of salty, so that's how I like my stuff. But it's to taste, and it depends on the size of your pot. So what happens, what you're looking for is to have a bite of lemon without it being bitter. We can switch to this if this one's not working. Super easy. Is this one?
Do you need any more close-ups? Okay.
Sorry, one of our cameras died. We haven't figured out why yet. Okay. There we go. Turn off everything.
Just leave, basically. Got it.
Perfect. Okay. Yay. You should still be able to hear me. So what you're looking for in this soup is a balance of salt, lemon, and the brightness. So if you're struggling with finding the balance, throw like a tablespoon, not quite a tablespoon in a bowl. I used a tablespoon, but I pulled about half a tablespoon. Put that into a bowl and taste it, because that's where the balance of flavors comes from, is from the pesto sauce. And you can also shave a little bit of Parmesan on it if you want. And really it comes down to taste. So this is one of the reasons why we don't do recipes, right? Because we don't know how big your courgettes are. We don't know how salty your tomatoes are and how acidic they are. We don't know how bitter your garlic is. So for me to tell you 1 tablespoon of this or 1 tablespoon of that, it's not actually you finding the balance of flavors. So the flavor profile of a pistou is bright lemon, a back of salt, and this like punch of the pesto sauce. So that's the balance you're looking for. And I'll actually have to be able to turn on the sound on here now because I have to be able to hear you. Perfect. So in terms of where we are in space-time continuum, your soup is done, and your focaccia is about 25 minutes away. It probably needs another 10 to 15 minutes to rise. It should get spongy again. Can you actually go grab one more of the, bring one of the focaccias back? Can you start cleaning this up so I can do like a little, show them everything? And the focaccia will need 15 to 20 minutes if your oven is truly the temperature it claims to be. Now, how do you avoid losing the beauty of your focaccia? Well, you brush it with olive oil. If you have a brush. If not, you can throw a little olive oil and use a spatula to like gently put it over it. But you want to get a little bit more olive oil over your design to protect it from burning. It is still going to brown. You're not going to have the same colors as what you started with, right? I'm literally just going in here and like covering my veg with some olive oil because again, we don't have a pastry brush. And that's it. So you'll pop that in the oven. You want to watch it, check it at the 15-minute mark. If your designs are browning, cover it with some foil. Oh, can they not hear me?
They should be able to hear you. I was unplugging the headphones.
Oh,
so you can hear them.
okay, got it.
It's fine.
So, I can hear you now. Sorry, we had headphones plugged in. Was there a question? Nope. Okay, cool. So what you'll want to check on this at the 15-minute mark. If the designs start burning, you'll want to just give it a pop of foil over it and let it finish cooking. These will not become quite as brown and luscious as regular focaccia because of the designs, but that's why we protect them with a little bit more olive oil. So mine needs some more time. If yours has basically doubled in size, or at least like popped up a little bit, yours is ready for the oven. The longer you let it rest, the more like puffy and cakey it'll get. So that's a personal choice. I have to let mine go a little longer because my instant yeast is non-existent and not so instant. So I know that mine needs some time. But you'll pop it in the oven for 15 minutes to start, check it. And by 20-25 minutes, it'll absolutely be done. And it should be beautiful.
I have a question about the classes in general.
Huh?
We're signed up for the lamb class.
Yes. Oh, you just froze. Everyone,
Can you hear me?
you're frozen. Oh. I cannot hear
You
you.
really have to know maybe 5 days ahead what to buy.
Yes, the lamb will definitely come early. You just went mute again.
You want me to join again here?
Yeah,
Because it's on,
yeah.
it's not on Wi-Fi.
I lost.
Tell
Okay,
us about the focaccia that's in the fridge, the gloopy.
the gloopy focaccia you will take out. You will put it in an oiled pan. You will put the dimples in it.
Yeah.
Pour, I'll send you the information. You'll pour a little bit of brine over it. And then you'll bake it at the same temperature for about the same amount of time.
Okay.
And you don't have to brine it. It's just a choice. Adding a little brine and a little olive oil, just leave it there, please. Then it comes together really nicely. So Jill, you are unmuted and not, well, you're not unmuted, but you're no longer skipping. What's up?
I was just saying that here in New York, because of the grocery situation, we have to, like, we got these ingredients on Friday and today's Monday. And there was certain things we couldn't get because we have to have them delivered. We're not going to the store. So I'm just asking for the lamb one that you tell us further ahead so we get the right cut of lamb, etc.
Sounds good. I will be ahead of the game.
Okay, thank you.
We are already ahead of the game. That was our first one, so it went out. Now everything else is coming out faster, but thank you.
Okay.
So the other ones are coming out almost 5 to 7 days in advance. So like,
Oh, good, perfect.
Tarts went out on Sunday too,
Mhm.
or on Friday too. So they went out at the same time, and Tarts isn't until Wednesday. So
Okay, thank you.
yep, no problem. I'll make sure that I create more space. Absolutely.
And I have a question about the Pistou. No, about the, what is the basil stuff called?
Pistou.
Oh, Pistou. Mine is a little, it looks watery, like maybe, it doesn't look like olive oil around it. It looks like water. Should I just spill it out?
Let me see.
Yeah, let's look at it.
Let me see it on the video.
Let me see if you can see it. You see it?
No, not quite, but close. No. I just see your counter.
Where's the camera? I don't know where the camera is.
There it is.
So, I would actually chop that up more.
Okay.
And that's just olive oil and basil that hasn't emulsified. Is there garlic in there?
Yes.
Okay. So that just needs to be chopped up better.
Okay.
Yep.
Fine. Thank you.
Here's the texture of mine.
Yeah, no, great question.
It's a little gloppier than mine.
Mhm. Yeah. Paige, did you have a question?
Yeah, so I have like a cup and a half of this, a Pistou, pretty ample. I'm not gonna use it all today on myself. How do I store it? How long will it last?
It'll last forever if you keep it under oil, and it'll last even longer than forever if you freeze it in ice cube trays. Either way. And if you're gonna use it for something other than a Pistou soup, you may want to balance the flavor a little bit more carefully and add a little bit more oil or a little bit more basil, because oftentimes a Pistou that goes in a Pistou soup is heavy on the garlic. So you just want to check.
Right. Okay, good.
Really means you kind of like put it in a container and then make sure the oil is just barely over it. You don't want to stir it. You want to like get a nice layer and then cover it in oil. Yeah. David, how'd you do?
Pistou soup looks okay, and the lemon and salt really does the trick.
Yep.
That brings out all the flavors. Tastes good. Pesto's good. I'm not sure about the focaccia. It hasn't risen that much.
Well, you live nearby. We talked about how we have to get you in the kitchen once we're back to a little bit more normalcy. So, what type of yeast are you using?
I got yeast down in the bio section of Super U during the week with the packet.
Was it the poudre à levure, or was it actually levure boulangerie?
No, the poudre à levure.
Yeah, so that's why. So that's baking powder.
Ah.
But we did it. Chris made the same mistake at Super U the other day because there literally is no levure boulangère right now. That's my same problem. I'm using a mix.
That's what it's called. Is it levure boulangère?
Yeah.
Okay, that explains it. Right.
I'm using a mix. I'm using something in between. It's like almost yeast, but not quite yeast. But baking powder will not do it. But the minute I find poudre the levure à boulangère, I will buy you some because it's only 60 cents a pack and I can drop it off to your house since you're literally around the corner from me. And when we're a little bit more ready for guests, this will be in June, you can come and we can redo it. Cool?
That explains it because I tried a focaccia 2 weeks ago and it didn't work out, and I thought it was because it was past its sell-by or past its use-by date.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I got new sachets of exactly the same thing. So, okay.
Also, I have some of this slow rise stuff that I can get to you too. The slow rise stuff takes 2 hours, but it works. It's just slow.
Okay. All right.
Cool. Awesome. Let's see. Who else?
I wish I could send you yeast because we have a surprising amount of it.
Oh,
it's very odd.
Lucky you.
I know it never happens. It's just.
So where's that?
So these are the States, I think.
So we get it in bulk.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
I know. I'll send you some. I can do it. I'll figure it out. I think the post office will let me.
Susan Buckner, how did you do? Hold on.
Focaccia, if you want to see it.
I would love to see it.
Tell me when you can see. Can you see it?
I see your head.
Oh. Now it's going to slide out of the pan. Let's see.
Oh.
Slide out. That didn't go so well.
I think I see your ceiling.
Did you ever see it?
No.
Oh. It looks pretty good.
Between your hand, I got a glimpse.
I wonder if she's on an iPad.
Yeah, some of the devices aren't as good as others for this. But, well, David, I'm glad you figured out the problem.
So McKenna, how do you serve the Pistou soup with the pesto on the side or on top or?
I put it in for people, at least a small amount, and then I bring extra to the table. So like, you can see here, I've actually added some already. So that's what good, and I do it like a couple minutes before serving, so the green has time to infuse. And then I'll put it in like a cheeky, cute little jar, like this. This is over, but like that, and serve it with a spoon so people can add more if they want.
Okay, and do you grate Parmesan over the top sometimes?
Sometimes, yes. If the salt is already really salty, like my salt was pretty strong on the Pistou, and I didn't realize that because I didn't taste it because Chris blended it. So my salt was already really strong. So I decided to skip Parmesan. But absolutely, Parmesan tastes delicious on it, especially if the salt isn't quite finished. I sometimes serve it with slices of lemon too. Everybody has different flavor profile in their face, right? Like all of us have different tongues, all of us have different taste buds. And so some people really like lemon. I hate lemon in my water, for example. I find it to be atrocious. So like for me, a lot of lemon is a hard no, but for some people, they can't get enough. So I sometimes serve it with slices of lemon just in case.
Okay.
If mine didn't seem to rise as much as I thought it should, can you bake it anyway?
Absolutely. It'll be more like pizza crust, but it'll still be delicious.
All right.
You can also just let it rise a little longer. Put it in a warm place in your kitchen. Give it like an extra 45 minutes to an hour right now before you throw it in the oven. I mean, that's what I'm having to do. Like,
well, I'll get into my kitchen then because my kitchen's very hot.
because like mine's like just started. Oh, there you go. Look, you can see like when I poke it, it bounces right. It's starting to bounce right back.
Huh?
So I'm still gonna give that another 30 minutes. I think, honestly, before I yeast.
Mine doesn't. Well, it could have been yeast, you know, I don't know.
And I want to show you what happens even after a couple hours of the one in your fridge. Look at how much less gloopy it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, look, it actually has texture. And I didn't need it at all. The reason why it has texture is the yeast is doing its thing. So it's creating that texture. So it might look really gloopy, but it starts to get texture.
Okay, mine doesn't have any. I have it in the refrigerator.
And there's no texture?
No, not yet. It's still very wet.
It'll probably be okay. Give it overnight.
Okay.
You may have not used, did you use tepid water when you mixed everything? Or
The first, I think the second one I used cold water.
Okay. Tepid makes all the difference in the world.
Okay.
Even though it's going in the fridge, it needs that few minutes to like start to be activated. The warm tepid water just above skin temperature activates the yeast and makes the yeasties go like this. Makes them dance.
Yeah, my yeast looked like it was bubbling. That was the problem, I think.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens.
So, yeah.
My soup, McKenna, my soup tastes wonderful. It looks beautiful.
Good.
I'm gonna get off and enjoy my soup.
Okay, awesome.
And thank you. This was marvelous. Really fun. Really good. And thank you all. It was good to meet everybody. This is the most people I've seen in 2 months. Seriously.
It's good.
Really good.
Good.
Stay safe.
Yay for McKenna.
Thank you so much. Great fun.
Thanks.
Thank y'all. Thank y'all for joining us.
Allison, how'd it go for you, friend?
Am I on?
Yeah.
Sorry, I have like 4 kids running around and dogs, so I have to keep my thing muted as much as possible. It looks amazing. I did add some beef bouillon to the soup to give it a bit of extra flavor. And my focaccia is in the oven for another 5 minutes, and I have no idea what time it is here, but maybe it'll be lunch when we're ready to go.
And don't worry, in the official like long-term cooking school, It won't all be this early. Some of it will actually be later because it'll be in our kitchen at home.
Oh, that's okay. I just have to remember to set my alarm and wake up in time to be here with all my ingredients.
Heard?
Wake up in time to get my coffee in too.
Third.
So feel free to email photos of your focaccias. Let me know if you have questions. You'll get a recording of the video within about 72 hours. And if you're signed up for other classes, I will start sending the ingredient lists earlier. I think that's it.
Great, thank you.
It was wonderful, really. I really.
And
Thank
Dave,
you so much.
soon.
Okay.
Okay.
Good to see
See
you
you
all.
soon. See you on the next. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
New York ladies, stay safe. Good to see you.
So we'll try.
Always good to see you.